Hey, it's Lowery Smith of the Commander Smiths here with Searching for the Spotlight, the Wise Mothman. Searching for the Spotlight is the Commander Smiths deck building series. And you can catch that after basically every set that comes out. Commander Smith is a weekly podcast. We generally record live on YouTube here every Monday night at 9 o'clock on the dot. Some people don't. That's when the countdown starts at least. Um, so you can always check us out there. And so we do a lot of little shorts. Please subscribe, share if you enjoy it. Let me know comments on what you'd be doing with the Wise Mothman. Adam built a deck with persistent petitioners as kind of more of the focal point. This is going to be more of a Lurgoyf version of it. And we will kind of see where the deck goes. I'm going to read through all of this. If you're not watching live, watch at 1.5, 2 times speed, whatever you're comfortable with. I don't talk that fast. And so you'll be able to hear it and whatnot. Also, if you want to become a patron, there are proxies in here and we give away proxies. Adam makes new arts, full arts, all that kind of stuff. We have foils, and we give those away to patrons. You can check that out. And also, we have a Discord that you can also join in that regard. Don't know if anybody's going to actually show up tonight because I was supposed to do it last night and had some technical difficulties. So just going to work my way through this and we'll see where this goes. All right. The Wise Mothman, one in a black and a green and a blue. It's a legendary creature, obviously. 3/3 flying. When it ETBs or attacks, each player gets a rad counter, and that is during kind of at the beginning of your first main phase. You mill as many cards as you have rad counters, and then if you have a non-land card milled, then that rad card goes away. You take a damage. If it's a land, the rad counter stays and no damage involved. Um, and then also, so whenever one or more non-land cards are milled, put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 2 or X target creatures, where X is the number of non-land cards milled this way. So whenever you mill, if you mill like 10 cards and you only have 5 creatures, you can only go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's kind of how that card is working right there. Sub Renshine, thanks for joining me. Thanks. Appreciate it. And I put the reason why it's very weird why Chrome doesn't work and allow me to see it, but I guess I'm on Microsoft Edge now. Yay. Yes, food chain is in here and we'll talk about that when we get there. But right now we want to do some milling. We want some rad counters. Proliferate kind of works here, and filling up everybody's graveyard should be a lot of fun. So that's the Wise Mothman. I think there's a lot of hype around it too. So I'm sure there's a lot of excitement for what's going on here. And then, within the week of the full release of Fallout, they're already doing spoilers for Conjunction Junction. What's your function? I'm sure it won't make the deck. It isn't yours. Yeah, that's true. Food chain likely won't make the deck, especially this one. I don't think it needs a combo piece in it, but we'll still talk about it, and I think it's a good suggestion, if you know what I mean. So, Wise Mothman there. I am in CMC order right now, so that's how we're gonna go. Sometimes they do it in piles of what they're doing or piles of what they are, the type of card, but this one is in CMC order. So let's kind of look through it, and I'll make some cuts as we go along. I'm at roughly 115, 120 cards here, and we're going to try and get that down lower 70s, upper 60s. And so we'll try and cut about 40, 50 cards here. And this pile does start out much bigger. I pull basically every relevant card that can be fun, and then I kind of pare it down with what I want it to be. But I did start out knowing I wanted to be Lurgoyf kind of focused. So I know that I want to lean into those cards already. So yeah, let's look at that. Thieves Guild Enforcer, 1 black, 1/1 flash. Whenever it or another rogue ETBs under your control, each opponent mills 2 cards. And as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in the graveyard, it gets +2/+1 and has death touch. So basically, uh, it's really cheap ETBs, and all your opponents are milling 2. There's a really good chance you're gonna start putting 1/1 counters on a bunch of stuff. And that's the thing is it's cheap. Maybe there's more rogues, but that's not what I'm going to really focus on or allow to really take a main theme. So if there is something there, I'll want to notice it later. But at this point, I don't care. Overwhelmed Apprentice. When an ETBs, each opponent mills 2 cards, and then you get to scry too. So it's really cheap. It's a body that you can put counters on, and it's still milling a bunch of stuff. So it's doing a lot in this deck. Otherworldly Gaze. It was something that I kind of saw and I like it for the flashback, but look at the top 3 cards of your library, put any number of them into your graveyard and the rest back on top of your library in any order. It's basically Surveil, but the problem is Surveil and this card does not mill. And this also doesn't put anything into your hand. So this is something that I will cut in this regard. Just want to bring it up that flashback is a good graveyard mechanic to kind of work with. So, Jace's Phantasm, and so this is kind of the first bit that you'll see is I want creatures that come down relatively cheap and grow, trying to base everything off the graveyard. Uh, Flying, Jace's Phantasm gets +4/+4 if an opponent has 10 or more cards in his or her graveyard. So a 5/5 flying for 1 blue is not bad. Ghastly Demise, 1 black instant, destroy target non-black creature if its toughness is less than or equal to the number of cards in your graveyard. I don't know how much my graveyard's gonna fill up versus it's generally people are going to be your opponents are going to be milled more than yourself unless you have some type of focus on that. And we'll see where that ends up. Let's say that, but I like the removal. Crop Sigil, 1 green enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put the top card of your deck into the graveyard, and then you can pay that if you have 4 different card types in the graveyard, sacrifice it, return up to a land from your graveyard to your hand. What is that? I missed it too. Creature card and a land card from your graveyard to your hand for 3 mana. It's doing a bit of work, and that's a mill right there. So they did do a switch in the name of mill, and so you kind of got to watch for it. Not everything that's putting stuff in your graveyard is mill as well. Kind of like Otherworldly Journey. That's not mill, but this is mill. Whenever they're referencing go to a card, so like there are cards from Ravnica sets that are like reveal cards until you find a land or 2 and then put them all in the graveyard. That's also not mill from my understanding. And so mill is just blindly putting stuff from your deck into the graveyard, and you'll just want to probably just go to Scryfall, check on the actual wording and updated, errated, or whatever. So, but that one is mill. It's cheap, good to go. Groundskeeper is it's a nice one. I like it. Return creature, return target basic land card from your graveyard to your hand. It's not a bad deal. Kind of like a cheap version of Crucible of Worlds. Just playing lands from the graveyard allows you to discard stuff, whatnot. Brawn, you want this in your graveyard. And if it is there and you control a forest, creatures you control have trample. Giving all your big fatties in here trample is pretty nice. So I want to keep that. Brainstorm, just drawing cards, little cantrippy, smoothing stuff out. Not a bad card. Preordain, also same difference. Thought Scour, target player mills 2 cards, and you get to draw a card. So it's kind of like a cantrip with the mill attached. I want to be playing something like this and really focused on that. So I would prefer to play Thought Scour over a Preordained in this kind of card in this kind of deck. Sensei's Top, it's going to be really, really important in this deck because it's going to allow you to figure out what you're going to mill in some aspects. And so I'd much rather use it in that regard. Soul Ring, yep. Birds of Paradise, nice, easy ramp. Delighted Halfling, same thing. Exploration, allowing you to play more lands per turn, 1 extra 1. Burgeoning is allowing you to put an lands from your hand into play when your opponents are playing lands. Phyrexian Reclamation is going to allow you to bring creatures from the graveyard that you've accidentally milled back to your hand. Um, Altar of the Brood, nice one. Whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So it's just whenever I have a permanent comes into play, your opponent's mill one. And so that'll be nice. Rune Crab. This has landfall, and then all your opponents mill 3 cards. So again, this is what I was saying. Like milling yourself likely isn't going to be super heavy. But a lot of these cards are going to affect more people, and you'll see that in a lot of different. So like, let's use the example of life gain. There's a huge difference in life gain when you have creatures coming into play under your control or under your opponent's control or whenever any creature. And there's a big difference in how much life you're going to be gaining. You're almost always going to have 3 players having more creatures come into play than yourself. So there's always going to be more creatures coming into play if everybody's creatures count. And so you want to look at that kind of stuff as well. So I'm going to mill more cards than this with this when I'm milling everybody at once, not including myself, but milling everybody at once is the most desirable, is what I'm trying to say. Song of the Damned, a black mana for each creature in your graveyard. Not a bad ritual in this kind of deck. Visions of Beyond, blue instant draw a card. If a graveyard has 20 or more cards, draw 3 cards instead. I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. All right, on to twos. Golgari Thug. Now, the nice thing is Dredge is a mill. So if you would draw a card, you may mill 4 cards instead and put this from the graveyard into your hand. So your Dredge cards are mill, and it's nice to have a little action in your graveyard if you're going to be milling. Mesmeric Orb, everybody's milling on this. Whenever they untap something, it's going to do a ton of work. Maddening Cacophony, just for 2 mana, each opponent mills 8 cards, and then if you're doing the kicker, so 6 total, everybody's milling half their deck. Card's going to be crazy in here. Uh, White of Precinct 6 gets 1/1 for each creature card in your opponent's graveyards. So again, there are a lot of distinctions between these kind of cards when it comes to your graveyard, your opponent's graveyards, or all graveyards. And your opponents will likely have more total creatures in their graveyards versus just yours. And that came into a lot of cuts when it comes to these kind of cards. So White of Precinct 6 is going to be pretty big for 2 mana. Souls of the Lost, as an additional cost to the spell, discard a card or sacrifice a permanent, and then its power is equal to the number of permanent cards in your graveyard, and its toughness is +1. And so this is permanents that's still going to get a lot done. We'll see there. The Binding of the Titans Saga. Each player puts the top 3 cards, so everybody mill, exile 2 target cards from a graveyard, gain some life, and return target creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's milling 12 cards total. You gain a little bit of life, and you're getting a creature back. So it's doing a bit of work there. Cruel Somnophage. Target player mills 4. Power and toughness equal to the number of creature cards in all graveyards for 2 mana. Yeah, I'll take that. Drown in the Lock. Counter target spell with mana value less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard, and destroy target creature with mana value less than the equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard. So you're milling everybody. You're going to get a lot of value out of Drown in the Lock. Avatar of Woe costs 6 less if there are 10 or more creatures in all graveyards. I'll take a 2 mana 6/5 that can tap to destroy any creature, and it has fear as well. That's the main goal there. Heroic Intervention, nice protection. Ripples of Potential, you're putting 1/1 counters on your creatures. It'll phase them out and proliferate, which you can proliferate the rad counters as well. This easily can be a proliferation deck. Swiftfoot Boots, nice protection. Lightning Greaves, good protection. Golgari Charm, here for the regenerate each creature you control. So it's there for the protection, but nice little removal too, just in case. Gyre Sage, it has evolve, and then it taps to add a green for each counter on it. Goes great in like Magus Lucia Kane, anything that adds counters, Shalayan Halar, but goes really well in here too. So you keep on adding counters to it. A bunch of big creatures coming down should evolve. It's going to get you a bunch of mana there. Likeness Looter taps to draw a card, discard a card, and then you can turn it into a creature in your graveyard and gains all these abilities. So it has some graveyard interaction, also being able to smooth out your draws. Same thing with Vohair, Vodilian Desecrator. You tap it, draw a card, discard a card. If it's an instant or sorcery, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. And then you can cast an instant or sorcery from the graveyard by sacking it. Vexing Radgull, either giving rad counters or proliferating on damage. So 2 mana, 1/2. That's a great card. Fractured Sanity. I almost expect to be cycling this. So whenever you cycle it, each opponent mills 4 cards. But if you pay the 3 blue, each opponent mills 14 cards, which is also very good. But I expect to draw a card and mill for a 12. That's probably makes me happy. Experimental Augury. I'm loving this card. I'm putting it in a lot of decks right now. So it's look at the top 3, put 1 into your hand, and then it proliferates. Cheap, easy, instant proliferation. Contentious Plan, 2 mana sorcery, proliferate, and then draw a card. Also a nice little cantrip there. Farseek, there are better options, but I'm also trying to stick with cards from the precon, so it has more of like a Fallout feel. So Farseek it is. Incubation Druid likes tokens, or counters on it, and if there's a counter on it, it'll tap for 3 mana of whatever you control for a color. Arcane Signet, yeah. Cabal Ritual, you're probably gonna have Threshold, and so it's gonna be 2 mana to get 5 mana, and that's a pretty good ritual. Could probably think about Dark Ritual as well, but this is, again, trying to pick cards that work with the graveyard more. Werebear taps for a green and then also gets +3/+3 as long as you have 7 or more cards. So Threshold is an idea that you can go with here as well. You'll likely have cards in your graveyard from it, and this grows. So 4/4 mana. Grapple with the Past. Mill 3 cards, and then you can return a creature or a land card from the graveyard to your hand. Not a bad deal there, especially with the mill. Stitched Together also has Threshold, but returning a creature from your graveyard to play or to your hand if you don't have Threshold. Nature's Lore is one of those ramp cards that are hard to get rid of. Life from the Loam, pulling 3 lands from your graveyard into your hand, also with the Dredge, works fantastic. Deranged, Hermit, and Milliken both tap to mill a card and get you a colorless. Works great here. Hermit Druid is one of those cards that's going to fill up your graveyard, but it's not milling, and it gets you a land. So it works. It does a lot of work. Old Rutstein. When it ETBs or at the beginning of your upkeep, mill 1 card. If it's a land, you get a treasure. If it's a creature, you get a 1/1. And if it's a non-creature, non-land card milled this way, you create a blood token. Blood token is what it is. All right. Actually, we're done with 2s. Let me kind of go through and see if there's anything that I just like dislike. I'm just kind of reading here, right? Given ideas, Crop Sigil's kind of slow. I like the returning, but that might be something later to think about. I I think, um, we can cut preordain here. We got a couple of cantrips there. Brainstorm, Thought Scour, cheap ramp. I I I like this burgeoning, especially with the um, groundskeeper and the life from the loam. Phyrexian Reclamation. Yep, yep, yep. Let's see here. Souls of the Lost. I don't love it. Binding of the Titans. 2 cards from a graveyard for each creature card. Gain a life. I don't. They're both there. We'll have to look at how many protections, but that has a chance at going. I like that. I kinda like also, wanna talk about, like, the looting. I like them as cheap draw because I'm playing in the graveyard, so I don't there's plenty of stuff that I'm okay just discarding and having some, work done later on. I probably have plenty of, ramp as well at that 2 spot. Yeah, I like all that at this point. Let's see here. Cut that down. Alright. We already talked about old Rutstein, but we'll keep it at this point. Squirming Emergence. I should say, hey, if you could hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, greatly appreciated for all of the support. We have honestly the best fans and people that actually enjoy our company. You guys are all awesome. So, Squirming Emergence, sorcery, return to this battlefield, target non-land permanent card in your graveyard with mana value less than or equal to the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. So you're going to be able to basically put any card from your graveyard into play for 3 mana. Not a bad deal. Steady progress is proliferate, draw a card. Retreat to Coral Helm is landfall, untap something or scry something. And so these kind of work with like Tato Farmer, and we'll get there. Garruk's Uprising. If you have a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card when it ETBs. And then whenever a creature with power 4 or greater ETBs, you draw a card, and creatures you control have trample. With Brawn, I said that trample's really good, and so with some cantrips tacked on there, it's also very good. Food Chain. Yes, Renshai, I appreciate you. Food Chain, and here you go with this beauty of a card. All right. Do I gotta read it on the back? Where the fuck? All right. Exile a creature you control. Add X mana of any one color where X is 1 plus the exiled creature's mana value. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells. And so Food Chain is really good with a lot of different commanders. And if you're able to exile it and have some mana left over for the other colors, you're going to get a lot of rad counters. Um, and so I don't know if it's necessarily infinite. Any one color. Yeah, so um but it's a good card, but I'm gonna cut it. I don't want it in here. Sorry. Um Imperious Mindbreaker. 1/4 soulbound, so whenever this and or another big creature that comes into play like Lord of Extinction. Whenever it's paired with another creature, each of those creatures has, whenever this creature attacks, each opponent mills cards equal to its toughness. So if you attack with a 2020, they're going to be milling 20, all of your opponents. That should be pretty good in there. Croaking Counterpart. Create a token that's a copy of target non-frog creature, except it's a 1/1 green frog. Flashback is the big part. And if you copy like a Lord of Extinction, it's a 1/1 with all of that on top of it. So whatever the power and toughness would be, it gets that. Um, Not to the bone, probably gonna get rid of it, but it's gonna gain a lot of life. 3 mana instant. You gain 2 life for each creature card in your graveyard, also has flashback, but we'll get rid of that. That'll be if the deck is slow, it'll be solid, but, um, I'm hoping not. Crozen, restore or untap target land, and if you have 7 or more in your graveyard, you can untap 3 target lands. That's fairly good ramp. Riddle Keeper, 1/4. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that creature's controller puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into the graveyard. So mills 2. I believe that's for each creature it will trigger. Not a bad deal. Far Wanderings, 3 mana sorcery, Threshold, which is what we're going for here, right? If 7 or more cards in your graveyard, instead search your library for up to 3 basic land cards, put them into play tapped, then shuffle the library. So 3 mana, get 3 mana into play tapped. If not, it's just a basic, which is not ideal. So King Narfi's Betrayal Saga. Each player mills 4 cards, including yourself, and then you can exile a creature or planeswalker from each graveyard, and then you can start casting those kind of creatures. I just like it because it's 3 mana. You're milling 4, 8, 12, 16 cards. Um, Mothman's going to put a lot of counters on stuff. Glowing One. Whenever it deals damage to a player, they get 4 rad counters, and whenever a player mills a non-land card, you gain a life, and it has Death Touch. Um, if I was more rad counter-y, I would play this. You're gonna gain a lot of life with this, but it's not a mill. Whenever a player oh, it is. Whenever a player mills a non-land card, you gain a life. That seems like a lot of life gain, right? I'll probably go with I'll stick with glowing one for now. Infesting Rad Roach. 2/2 flying, can't block. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player gets that many rad counters, so likely 2. I guess the counters on there can make it bigger. But whenever an opponent mills a non-land card, it goes from the yard into your hand. Um, and so this feels like really resilient. You're gonna have plenty of mill that isn't based on rad counters and stuff like that. So Nyx Weaver. At the beginning of your upkeep, mill 2 cards, and then you can sack it, exile it, and then return a card from the yard to your hand. Um, I've always found this card a little slow. I'm sure it builds up, but it's not. I'm not entirely playing from the yard, so I think I'm okay in that regard. And talking about it, I should probably get rid of Crop Sigil as well in that regard. So just like those upkeep mill triggers, I don't think that's what I'm really looking for. We have Rowl Troubleshooter, 3 mana, 1/4. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from among cards that in your graveyard that were milled this turn, and then you can tap it. Each player mills a card. So kind of works with Retreat to Coral Helm, but also just being able to cast spells from your yard that you milled. Not a bad deal. Emery Lurker of the Lock. Whenever at ETBs, you're milling yourself 4, and then you're able to tap, cast artifact from your graveyard. Lots of value to be had there. Court of Cunning. When at ETBs, you are the monarch. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, uh, basically in this deck, everybody's going to mill 2 if you're not the monarch. And if you are, each player is going to mill 10 cards. So plenty of stuff going on there for 3 mana. So see the difference between like Nyx Weaver and Court of Cunning. Would you rather mill 2 and maybe bring something back if it's not killed by a wrath or something randomly? Or you're just doing like 2 or 10, so you're milling 8 cards or 40 cards. There's just so much more to be had there, in my opinion. Psychic Corrosion. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their library into the graveyard. So Brainstorm is going to mill everybody 6. It's a good one to have here. Night Howler. It gets +X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards. Also bestow, so you can put that on a different creature. And it's also gorgeous. Terravore, power and toughness is equal to the number of lands in all graveyards, and it has trample, 3 mana. Not a bad deal there. Should be pretty big. Tyvar, tapping abilities have haste. You can untap up to 1 creature, and then you can mill 3 cards, and you can return a creature card with mana value 2 or less from the yard to the battlefield. So more than likely, you're going to be able to hit one of your like little ramp creatures. And you're also milling yourself, which is not a bad deal in this. Mutational Advantage. Permanents you control with counters on them gain hexproof and destructible until end of turn. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to those permanents and proliferate. Doing a lot of stuff there for 3 mana. Pretty happy that exists now. Inspiring Call, one of my favorite cards, but draw a card for each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it, and they gain indestructible until end of turn. A Wise Mothman's going to put a lot of counters out. You're going to draw a lot of cards. Intruder Alarm. Um, I don't remember why this is in here. Creatures don't untap during their controller's untap steps. So whenever a creature ETBs the battlefield, untap all creatures. I think we're going to cut this for now. I don't really remember why it's in here, other than some of the tap abilities. And I might have had something that taps for milling and stuff like that. We can add it in. We can always add it in. Tezzeret's Gambit, draw 2 cards, proliferate. Again, proliferation ups those rad counters. Invasion of Amonkhet. Whenever it ETBs, each player mills 3 cards, and then each opponent discards a card, and you get to draw a card, deal 4 damage to it, turn it over. It's a 4/4, enters the battlefield as a copy of any creature card in a graveyard, except it's the 4/4 black zombie. And the Goyf stuff also would apply here, so it'd be much bigger than a 4/4. Uh, I don't know how to say this one. I should figure it out one day, but it's artifact, tap it, draw a card, discard a card. You pay the 4, transform it, and basically it taps for as many permanents that are in your graveyard. That's gonna be a huge advantage there. It's gonna be bonkers. Plus that, looting, that isn't bad. Staff of Completion. Destroy target permanent you own or add 1 mana of any color. This is a really good card in your proliferate decks. It's drawing, it's mana, and it's proliferate however you need it to happen. Um, and I'm gonna cut it because I need it in the other deck that I'm probably gonna build, my energy bobblehead deck that I'll be building here in a couple weeks, and I want this over there, I think, because proliferate works with energy as well. So we'll do that. We'll cut that just for that reason. Sorry. Tato Farmer. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may get 2 rad counters. Um, and then you can tap it, put target land card in a graveyard that was milled there this turn, the battlefield under your control tapped. And so with Coral Helm or Retreat to Coral Helm, you tap, you mill, people mill, you put one of them lands into play, untap it, do it again for each land into play, and you're just able to do it whenever stuff is milled. That's kind of what I'm going for there. Necrotic Ooze. It gains all the activated abilities of all creatures in all graveyards. And so I feel like that has a good chance of being good, right? Jared Golgari, Lich Lord. We're in the 4s at this point, but +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard, but you can sacrifice another creature for that activated ability, and each opponent loses life equal to the sacrificed creature's power. So again, those Lurgoyfs, and they're going to be big. And then sacrifice a swamp and a forest and bring it back from the yard to your hand. The Master Transcendent. I think this was maybe what the intruder alarm was for. But when an ETB's target player gets 2 rad counters, and then you can put target creature card in a graveyard that was milled this turn into the battlefield under your control. It's a green mutant. And so basically, somebody mills a bunch, you bring a creature back, untaps with intruder alarm, and do that for each creature that exists. So probably better in that. And generally, I don't like putting it like intruder alarm is like one step further than what I want because it's only working here once. Retreat to Coral Helm is going to be able to untap my mana guys, my dorks, my looters. It has a lot more utility in here. To whereas intruder alarm is kind of only working there. Intruder alarm probably also works with everything that I just said. With maybe intruder alarm is the one to keep. You gotta watch out for intruder alarm. It is definitely a shoot. It's a card that kind of just is fucking broken and can go infinite quite easy. And so I like using it in decks where I can't go infinite. So we'll get rid of retreat and we'll put in the intruder alarm. There we go. All right, Trebed Return. 4 mana sorcery, return a creature from the yard to the battlefield under your control, your graveyard. And then you can flashback, sacrifice 3 creatures to do it again. Just being able to play from the yard, I'm thinking that's going to be really nice. And so we'll see. It's been a long time since I've seen this one. Conduit of Worlds. You can play lands from the yard and then choose target non-land permanent card in a graveyard if you haven't cast anything this turn, and then you can cast something from the graveyard. So, and activate only as a sorcery. Has to be a permanent. Dreamborn Muse. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player puts the top X cards of his or her library into the graveyard, where X is the number of cards in their hand. And so that's mill. That is mill. Plenty of mill to happen. Mirren of Clan Neltoth. It's here to basically just bring creatures from the graveyard into your hand, and if they're good enough into play, if there's enough experience counters, but more than likely it's just each upkeep going into your hand. Roaming Throne doubles the triggers of the Wise Mothman and whatever mutant is likely in there. Now you can always just call like the best triggered creature in play. More than likely it's just going to be the Mothman, and I'll have to check on how many mutants there actually are, but I'm not gonna worry about that either. Shadowkin has flash. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player mills 3 cards, and then it can become a creature that's in the graveyard. Maybe it had to be milled, but yeah. Okay. Crows and Beast. It's one of those cards that grows with the amount of creatures that are in, or amount of cards in your graveyard. So if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, there's an 8/8 for 4 mana. Not a bad deal. A little boring. And I'll probably just cut it because I think I like the Goyfs just better, but we'll end up seeing what is where. Actually, we'll keep that until we can do a comparison. Bloatfly Swarm comes in with 5/1/1 counters on it. If damage would be dealt to Bloatfly Swarm when it has 1/1 counter on it, prevent that damage, remove the counter, and then uh, give each player a rad counter for each 1/1 counter removed this way. You're going to put 1/1 counters on it likely as well, so it's going to stick around longer than just the 5 damage it's dealt. Struggle for Project Purity. You can choose either Brotherhood or Enclave, and at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent draws a card, and then you're going to draw cards for the amount of cards that were drawn this way. So each opponent's drawing 1, you're going to draw 3 likely. If you play in pods that are bigger, this card probably gets really good, like if you're drawing 4 or 5 because of it. But this is here for whenever a player attacks you with 1 or more creatures, that player gets twice that many rad counters. So if they're going to attack you with 3 creatures, they get 6 rad counters. That's kind of what's going on. So it's a little bit like Riddle Keeper in that regard. Loogie 4. Power and toughness equal to the number of creature cards in all graveyards plus the 1 toughness. Um, I think I misspoke earlier as well when I was saying like have a clone, like that frog token be a like a Loogie 4. It would not get the +1/+1 from what it is. It would be exactly this power and toughness, I believe. All right. Now I'm not 100% sure now that I'm thinking about it. Because it would copy this part and copy that part, and I don't know which one is overriding the other, but I'm pretty sure that clone would work. So Mortivore, same thing, but regenerate and black. Bone Horde, living weapon, but equipped creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards. So basically, 4 mana comes down. It's as big as your Loogie 4. Quick equip if the Germ token dies. Not a bad deal. Culling Ritual, card that's good, I'm sure, but I always cut it because I don't like Wraths. So I'm going to cut it. That's what it is. Atomize, destroy target non-land permanent, proliferate. So 4 mana, proliferate, and destroying a non-land permanent is very flexible in that regard. And it has to proliferate. We'll keep it around for now. But Danny Pink, creatures you control have whenever 1 or more counters are placed on it. Once per turn, you get to draw a card, but that is 4. So if you have 5 creatures that get 1 counter on each of them, You're gonna draw 5 cards. It's a crazy good card. Deep Analysis. Flashback is, 2 and 3 life and draw 2 cards. Just being able to play from the yard a little bit. Kogla, Shadow, Archdruid. Whenever it attacks, it gains Death Touch until end of turn, and you mill 2 cards. Then once during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a permanent spell from among cards in your graveyard that would put there from your library this turn. You're milling a bunch of cards, not just the 2, and so you're going to be able to do at least one or the other. Titan's Nest. You can remove cards from your graveyard to pay for colored non-X spells. So each card you remove gives you a colorless. Should be a pretty cool card. Blossoming Tortoise. Whenever it attacks or ETBs, you mill 3 cards and return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Activated abilities cost 1 less for lands, and land creatures you control get +1/+1. Extract from Darkness, 5 mana sorcery. Each player puts the top 2 cards. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8. And then you can put a creature card from the yard into the battlefield under your control. That's any yard. Can be a nice little reanimate thing. The Mimeoplasm. You get to exile 2 cards. Exile 2 creature cards from graveyards, so it doesn't have to be yours. If you do, enters the battlefield as a copy of one of those cards with a number of additional 1/1 counters on it equal to the power of the other card. So those Loogie fours and um, anything with a star has that power and toughness no matter where it is, be it in your deck, your hand, exile, graveyard. It will always recognize what it's referencing in that regard. Um, and so you can make it big even though it's not referencing it in this card. Sir Conrad the Grim, whenever a creature card is milled or just put in your graveyard, it leaves the graveyard anyway. Um, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then it also has a mill component on it. So we like that. Lear, Disciple of the Drowned. Spells can't be countered, and instants and sorceries have flashback from your graveyard. Good way there. Herd Baloff. Oh, this is in here because whenever you put a 1/1 counter on it, uh create a 4/4 green beast creature token. That would be really awesome in this. And there's a lot of tokens that you can pull from. You can make definitely a token version of the Wise Mothman interacting with the graveyard and stuff like that. Not something that I'm doing here. So we'll cut that. But I just want to talk about like you could build a token version of this. Consuming Aberration, power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your opponent's graveyards. It can get real big. Now, whenever you cast a spell, each opponent reveals cards from the top of his or her library until she reveals a land card, then puts those cards into the graveyard. That is not mill, but it's going to fill graveyards up. So that's quite good. Lord of Extinction, power and toughness equal to the number of cards in all graveyards. It's going to be real big. Angel of Suffering, 5/3. If damage would be dealt to you, prevent that damage and mill twice that many cards. Um, so it's going to do some work for you to mill a bunch in that regard. Mire Alert Queen, 5 mana vigilance 4/4. When it ETBs, target player gets 2 rad counters. And then whenever one or more non-land cards are milled, draw a card, put a 1/1 counter on it. Happens once per turn. So I like that. That's going to draw you 1, 2, 3, 4 per turn. Perennial Behemoth. You may play lands from your graveyards. It's 5 mana for a 2/7, but unearth green, green, and going to be able to have at least a little bit of graveyard interaction. Rexiel the Risen Deep. Island Walk, Swamp Walk, 5/8 for 6 mana. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from their graveyard without paying the mana cost. If that spell, exile it. And so there are plenty of cards that take a lot of, um, you know, take stuff from the graveyards, and I don't really want to do that. And so, like, if I take away lands, Terravore is not very good. If I'm exiling graveyards, obviously Lugi 4 is not going to be that good. Um, And so you wanna kinda leave the graveyards intact, but I'm not playing a lot of instants and sorceries, like, that does not matter, and so I think this could have a potential there. Well, Droltha the Gravetide, being able to cast a spell of each permanent type from your graveyard per turn is likely going to be a ton of value there. Breach the Multiverse. Each player mills 10 cards, and for each player, choose a creature or planeswalker card, put it into play. It's a Phyrexian. So you're milling 40 cards and getting four biggest creatures in play. Should do a lot of work there. Dread Summons. I really like this card, but it's that token idea. But it's mill X cards, create X 2/2 zombies for each creature that was milled that way. Um, I might cut it, but I don't want to. I've wanted to play this card a long time, but I have plenty of cuts that I need to do. All right, let's go with Old Stick Fingers. Where are we at? 45 minutes. Almost done. Three more cards. Uh, Whenever you cast this spell, reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal X creature cards. Put all creature cards this way into your graveyard and the rest on the bottom. And its toughness is equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. The reason why I'm keeping this for now is it at least fills your graveyard. And so it's going to be at least whatever you pay the X for, if not bigger. It is not mill, though. Nuclear Fallout. Each creature gets twice XX until end of turn. Each player gets X rad counters. So as mill, a little bit of wrath style potential, but rad counters are nice. Contaminated Drink, draw X cards, then you get half X rad counters rounded up. I don't hate the rad counters, so that's where we're at. We didn't cut much there, but let's get it into what they're kind of doing so we can see how much ramp, how much draw we have, and that's a pretty decent way to start. Get a little bit of water here. Let's see here. All right. So I have a little bit of an order, but we'll go with like what they're kind of doing there. This will be just mill. Scrying, I put in the draw section, and we'll kind of do that. Mill, big creature, put removal there. Land, boost, draw, 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 ramp, ramp, ramp. It's a type of protection when you can reanimate. That's nope. Mill, mill, ramp, draw. Put target creature card from your graveyard. When it dies, put a creature from the graveyard on top of your library. We'll consider that mill. Mill, mill. Big creature, big creature. That's there for the mill. Big creature. Removal. It's also removal. Protection. Protection, protection, protection. Ramp. Draw. Draw. That is for, I guess, the mill and proliferate. I guess there's going to have to be, well, there might not have to be a proliferate area. Mill. That's a draw. That's a draw. Ramp, 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 ramp. Graveyard. Ugh. What's that doing? Just kind of everything. Treasure, a 1/1, and a discard. Draw blood token. It doesn't grow. It does mill a card. Let's cut it. Recovery. That's draw, mill, clone. Technically, it's kind of what it's going for. I guess that's a protection ramp mill. Who's gaining life? I guess that's mill. Also, any rad counters? Mill. Ugh. Graveyard. Mill. Mill. Big. I like the haste. That's kind of there. Protection. Draw. Draw. What are you? You're just a big one. Yeah, it's gonna be big. Draw a discard. That's a better ramp. That is a wild card. Big guy. Oh, playing from the graveyard and lands. That's kind of like a dual threat. Bop. I should actually probably just make. There's enough like graveyard reanimation here to make it its own thing. Plenty. Yeah. Double trigger. Zoop. That should just be that. Some rad counters. Removal. Draw. That's graveyard shit. We'll call that graveyard shit too. Ramp. Ramp. Graveyard. Big thing. I guess that's mill. Graveyard stuff. Yeah, plenty of graveyard stuff. Draw. Flop. Big time mill. That's removal, and that is draw. All right. So this kind of stuff kind of helps see how much involvement in the different sections of how to build a deck is, or whatever your deck is trying to do. So 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 24. Could lose a couple. I'm gonna move this stuff out of the way. 24. Likely wanting. I generally try and be somewhere around like 18. So we can cut roughly 6 cards there. Let's put it in its own CMC order. 4. Then you can kind of see where everything's going to line up a bit. And that might not all fit on. Oh. All right. Move it over, I guess. Plenty in that 2 spot. 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to have 9 basic lands. Groundskeeper gets a basic land, which is maybe a little bit of a problem. Maybe we think about cutting burgeoning and groundskeeper. So exploration is nice if you're drawing enough. That doesn't. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm down with all those at this point. A 2 spot though. There's a lot there. Hermit probably likes that. I think land into play, into hand. Plenty of creatures here. So I think we like Farseek still. I like Incubation Druid, Gyre Sage. They just give a lot more mana. Turns into a Bloom Tender type thing. Werebear probably is negligible. Might be able to cut that. Cabal Ritual also probably doesn't matter. Like, we just need to be, like, aggressive on cutting. I really like Milliken, Life from the Loam, Deranged Assistant, and I want to do Arcane and Farseek. And so are we looking at these kind of things? I think we might be able to cut Nature's Lore just because it's not on theme at all. Can probably go. I got a lot of creatures that are creating the mana, and that's something that I don't necessarily like. I think Cabal Ritual is kind of more of a nice late game thing. Better if Hermit Druid's in the place. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14. Um, and so I think part of what I like Blossoming Tortoise, Titan's Nest. Do I like Titan's Nest? I guess that's the question. I like it, but I'm using the graveyard a lot more than I think a lot of otherwise Mothman decks are. So I think Titan's Nest can kind of go. Um, I have a lot of creatures that are tapping for abilities. I might need to think about adding in um, Thousand Year Elixir as well, just for the haste part of it. But I like Blossoming Tortoise here, Perennial Behemoth, being able to play lands and block for days. I think we can cut Crows and Restore as well. Disappointingly. I like that card. I've liked it a long time. All right. Let's see here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Not too bad. Cut 6. I'm at 18. Doesn't mean that I'm done, but done for now. All right, let's look at our draw. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, not much to cut there. So let's just kind of look at it. This is going for that 2 spot. And we can zoop, zoop. Um, 3 threes, 2 2 2 2, 1 1 1 1 1. Lots of cantrips here. And so I think I can probably cut Brainstorm. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd rather have a creature. A few more creatures are going to do me better than like a Brainstorm. Just like consistency, being able to put a counter on it, stuff like that. I like the ability to play this from the graveyard, deep analysis, or discard it to the looting. I don't have a ton of looting, but there's 3 cards that right now are focused on it. Tezzeret's Gambit, Steady Progress, also Proliferation. That's where I kind of like the proliferation coming from, especially in this deck. I don't need a whole ton of proliferation, but since it works with the 1/1 counters and the rad counters, if I have the rad counters, I'm pretty happy there. And I'm not displeased in any of those degree. Danny Pink's in. Arctide Queen in. Contaminated Drink. Yeah. All right. So we got rid of 1. We're at 17. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 17. I don't hate it. 35. 35 between draw and ramp, which is technically without lands half your deck. Sounds weird to say it like that, but it is what it is. Um, let's go with these random ass ones. We got Ooze, Roaming Throne, Intruder Alarm. Like I said, a lot of tapping creatures. So Intruder Alarm is probably the better choice and probably stays in. um, yeah, I'm all right with that at this point. All right, Protection, Angel of Suffering. Brawn is just going to be either discarded or milled every time, obviously. Heroic Intervention, Ripples of Potential, Boots, Greaves, Riddle Keeper, riddle me this, and that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I like that as removal, a little bit of both. Dot, 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 dot. If I'm going to get rid of anything, there's potential of Riddle Keeper and Angel of Suffering. But I like the mill and the protection spot. I don't know. Angel of Suffering is gonna have me mill more cards with the rad, so I'm taking damage, which is gonna mill me one more. But Angel of Suffering is gonna be dope in here, or it's gonna get me milled out. Let's say it's gonna get me milled out. I don't need that. I need a little bit more control over that. I might be okay with Golgari Charm. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we can get rid of Golgari Charm too. We have Inspiring Call. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 plus call is more than enough. Like instant speed. This having the haste a little bit, the second um bit of trample in there. All right. It's 45. Let's go with some removal. Nuclear Fallout. I dig it. Avatar of Woe. Drawn and Lock. I'm excited for these three. And then these I kind of look at. I'm kind of going like, do I really number of cards in your graveyard? Non-black. This is a non-land permanent, which I kind of like. This having to be a creature is rough. I already have the creature. I'd rather have Avatar of Woe. I like the proliferate on there. I like the non-land permanent creature, creature or spell, creature, non-land. Ugh. I like that it's so cheap though. But yeah, we can get rid of Ghastly Demise. 49. Let's go with big creatures. There seems like there's plenty here. Um, so Lando, 5, 5, 4, 4, 4. Oh, yeah. 3, 3. Pretty sure that works. 2, 2, 2, 1. All right. So old stick fingers is not a mill. And that feels like a little bit of a problem for me. And it's specifically creatures in my graveyard. So I think we can cut that. Mimeoplasm. I definitely like these two. Mimeoplasm, what am I doing with this? Probably exiling one of these bigger creatures and then a creature with a cool text box, maybe some sort of protection on it or evasion. Is that like a flying 2020? That'd be good, right? Um Keep it for now. Let's go to that 4 spot. I like Jared for the reach aspect of it. So, even though, like, what could be the backup plan in this deck? It's like Sir Conrad and Jared, but then also, like, I could probably mill enough to whereas, like, people are getting, yeah, Jared can definitely be a backup win con for sure. So, I missed that. I don't know how I missed you. Not running Brewvac for the extra mill. I felt like it depends on how much mill actually makes it into the deck, and it might get added in later. Brewvac is a great card, but it's kinda like a card that didn't do anything on its own in this kinda deck. So, um, Jared seems cool. Shadowkin, mill 3 cards. Each player mills 3 cards. You may exile a creature card from among the cards milled this way. If you do, Shadowkin becomes a copy of that card, except it has this ability. So 3, 6, 9, 12 at your upkeep. Plenty of counters to be had there. I do kind of like that in that regard. Crows and Beast does not have any, can't get bigger than an 8/8. Um, doesn't have any mill attached to it. So I think we can cut Crows and Beast. Lugifor, I think that can get real big. Mortivore and Bone Horde, all of them. I like them all. Then you got Crackling Counterpart. This is something I'll cut for now just because I'm not entirely sure on the ruling of how that would work or if that 1/1 would just supersede whatever's going there. But there's that potential. There's a Jumpstart cloner, there is a flashback clone card, Cackling Counterpart. Um, so that's why Croaking Counterpart, fantastic. So there's a potential there if you're running this deck as well. But we'll cut that just for now, just because I don't know the ruling. And that's something you can add in when you figure it out. Night Howl for sure. Terravore, I think there's more land than anything, so you're gonna mill that the most. Invasion of Amonkhet. I like the idea of milling 3, 6, 9, 12. Everybody discards a card. You get to draw a little bit, and then a creature that has this is doing enough. White of Sixth Precinct. I dig it. To whereas Souls of the Lost is very dependent on how many permanents are in your graveyard. Um, and I'm willing to cut over that. Cruel Somnophage and Jace's Phantasm. I like that in here too. 1, 2, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Plant. That's 14. That's a bunch of big creatures. Then this is the mill part. 7, 5, 4, 4. And this is just where it's gonna be. Threes, twos, 1, 1, 1. Kind of feels bad not having. Give me a second. You're gonna quick be able to see what else was cut from the deck before we started. So all those cards right there. I'm gonna look for a specific card, but you enjoy whatever you need to see when it comes to that. I really like that card. Um, let's see. Why I don't know why I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head. Quasi duplicates the other clone thing. Emrakul could be in there, but I'm wanting the power to be more adjustable in here. Another one that can create tokens. Diddy dum, diddy dum. I like the damage one, the damage mill, just because it kind of is going to work with Sir Conrad a little bit too good. I think that's why I cut it. Um, there we go. Mind Crank. Mind Crank should probably be in here. And get rid of the rest. I could go through everything. Well, meh, meh. Let's move through this, eh? So I like Breach the Multiverse. That's a nice big top end card. Sir Conrad's gonna do that extra damage. Um, I think I want to stick with rad counters more than just straight mill, even though the straight mill is probably a better card. Um, but we can cut Dreamborn Muse a bit. I think I want to do rad counters, and the rad counters, nice flying too. Let's see here. Fractured Sanity. Yep. Imperious Mindbreaker. Yep. Each player mills 4 cards, and then you're exiling creature cards. I think Glowing One can probably go away. I like Rowell a lot. Court of Cunning, Psychic Corrosion, Infesting Rad Roach. All right, let's read second 2 and 3 chapters. Until end of turn, you may cast spells from among cards exiled with King of Nafri's Betrayal, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. Each player mills 4 cards. Then you may exile a creature or planeswalker card from each graveyard. Doesn't have to be what you milled either. Um, that's kind of nice. And so that's some good advantage. That's milling 12 cards and being able to cast 4 creatures. In that regard, that's doing some work there. I don't have anything against that. 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11. Whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put in the graveyard from anywhere. Yeah. Mind Crank. Let's talk. Whenever an opponent loses life, that player puts that many cards from their graveyard on top of their. So it works really well with Sir Conrad. Basically, it's if a creature card is milled, everybody's going to lose a damage, or take a damage, which is going to mill Mind Crank, and that can kind of keep on going there for a bit. So um, that's pretty combo-y, but we'll see. Golgari Thug. I do like the dredge and putting a creature on top, but I think we can probably cut that. Mesmeric Orb, Maddening, Vexing Radgull. The Binding of the Titans can probably go. Probably just not doing enough there. Ruin Crab, Altar, Thieves Guild Enforcer. Let's reread that a little bit. Another rogue ETBs under your control. Each opponent mills 2 cards. As long as your opponent has 8 or more cards in the yard, it gets +2/+1 and has Death Touch. I'm gonna quick see how many. We can do that a little bit later. Let's cut Thieves Guild Enforcer. I like the wizard one, the blue one, because that's scrying too. I dig it. You know what I mean? Um, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Definitely over the allotted amount, but all right. Playing from the yard. Let's check this out. Rexiel, Muldrotha, Lear, Extract the Darkness, Conduit, Kaga. Oh, let's see here. Is likely a 1. That's a 3, 4, 4, 4. All right. I think I'd rather have Lear than Rexiel. I don't think I need 2. And also I don't really like playing from other people's graveyards too much. So COVID kind of had me doing that. Like it's hard to play online with that. Madrotha still makes a ton of sense to me. Lear makes a ton of sense to me. Extract from the darkness, but we'll have to see. Each player mills top 2 cards, so 2, 4, 6, 8. And then put a creature card from the graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So I like, depending on the curve, I'd probably rather have that over Stitch Together. Ugh. But also, Dread Return? Dread Return with the flashback kind of like is better than all 3 of those. Um, we're okay for now. Master Transcendent, Dread, Mirren. I like Conduit, but okay. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a permanent spell from among the cards in your yard that were put there from your library this turn. Um, Cast a spell or play a land once per turn from mill. There's plenty of ways that I'm going to mill myself, so he doesn't have to attack. Conduit, it is a creature, and so I can get it big enough. I probably like it better than Conduit at this. I don't know if I want to say that. Um, Both are fine at this point. Squirming Vengeance, Tyvar, I like them both. Tyvar is going to do a lot of work with all those tapping creatures. Stick Together, Grapple with the Past. That's a mill 3, that is. Then you may return a creature or land card from the yard to your hand. And then Stitch Together is just returning a creature from the yard to your hand. Let's cut Stitch Together. I might even cut Extract from Darkness. Let's rethink that a little bit. Let's keep Extract, but get rid of Marin. Marin, I think, is going to be really good in here, but right now I think we can get around that. I like the mill 3 and then bring a land or a creature back. It's an instant, whatever it needs to be. And I like Phyrexian Reclamation, just the repeatability of it. All right, let's see how many cards we're at right now. We probably want to go um, card types after this. 5. One thing that I forgot to do as well as 30 is mention that you can go to Moxfield and check out the deck list, and there's going to be a deck by the time. How do you feel about Drown in the Lock? It's a good mode card. I have it in here for sure. I like it in here because it is the counterspell or the destroy, and it cares about graveyards and stuff like that. So, totally agree. Totally agree on that card. Hmm, 30. All right, 92. 92. All right. Let's go with card type. So I think what we have a lot of is um reanimation. So it's kind of like reanimation makes a ton of sense, but I want it to be a big creature deck. And so they're probably competing, and I probably have to do a better job there and figure that out. Creatures are generally the biggest spot for me. Like I just have a lot of creatures, a lot of permanents. And so I go through and pull the creatures first, and then I can break them up into the smaller ones. Let's see here. There we go. All right. Yeah, that's a huge creature pile as well. I put battles and planeswalkers underneath them. And then yeah. Yeah, it's, this will be the first time that I'm playing with it, but I like that it's in a mill type deck here. I think it's a good use of it, but I'm sure it's good a lot of the time. Um, Kinda have a lot of enchantments. Sorcery. I think I always have a bit more of enchantments than a lot of people. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but instant. It's technically just a creature, but sorcery. Drown a lock. There we go. All right. So right now I like both of these, so we'll just set them off to the side. I don't need them in the way. Plenty of instants for Lear at this point as well. Instants and sorceries. Um, Contaminated drink. Tezzerot's Gambit. We don't want to be cutting too many cards. Like withdraw. Draw and ramp, we know we're right around where we want to be. Um Breach the multiverse. I do like that one. That's a mill and a reanimate. I think my problem is going to end up being did I get rid of breach or is that in here? That is in here. Okay. So like basically you got two of the very similar cards. This one's 7, this one's 5, 2, 4, 6, 8. There's 40 cards. Like the huge difference between 2 mana is undeniable, right? Um Extract from the darkness can probably go. Squirming emergence. Oh, that's an instant. All right. That's Gambit. A lot of little things that'll keep you going. Far Wandering, I think, is going to be really good in here. I'm curious as to how many cards are going to go into my graveyard. Um, but they're like early on. That's the worry. That's the wonder. And that might not do anything. So we got rid of what one. Ugh. And so this is just me going like, okay, what's there? Like I like that big huge punch that Breach of the Multiverse does. I know nuclear fallout. All right. I think sorceries are probably fine. Let's go with instance, contaminated drink, drown in the lock, atomize. I do like it. Sparring call. Da 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 da. Visions, cabal ritual. And Songs of the Damned. I like Ripples. I like Hyper. Um, I could probably get rid of Grapple from the past. We just start picking on some of the um I do like it. It's like a one-time shot of life from the loam. A bad one, but in that regard, it's not amazing. Atomize. And this is all just kind of counter. Da 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 da. And then you just like those that amount of instants and sorceries makes me wonder. Like it's almost like split. So, do I like Muldrotha? Do I like Lear? Do I like both of them and then get rid of everything else when it comes to like the reanimation package? That that might sound like what's going to happen is just pick those two on the higher end and just get some value out of it. Uh, Garrick, Uprising, Exploration, Intruder Alarm, Struggle for Project Purity. I like the red counters. Psychic corrosion. I still want some. Um, all right, here's a spot. All right. Exploration, intruder alarm. I think those are all good right there. I like Phyrexian reclamation. And so right now we're talking about like over a period of time for a 12. This is like King Narfi's betrayal without the monarch is probably better than Court of Cunning. Um, ugh. We can cut Court of Cunning. Like it doesn't do anything more. I'd be more happy whenever you draw a card each opponent. Yeah, yeah, struggle. There we go. All right, just making cuts down below 90 at this point. Bone Hoarder, Lawn. Yep. I like Mind Crank a bit more now that I'm thinking about it. Mesmeric, Alter, Conduit. That's a good question. That's a good question. Let's see here. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's go through the creatures a bit and then we will go through and do like the CMC for everything. I think what we'll do is we'll figure it out after this, huh? All right. Grower, not a shower. Maybe that should be the name of this. That'd be a pretty good name. Mothman growing, not showing. Probably gets too dirty, yeah. You may cast a spell from among cards in your graveyard that were milled this turn. Um, that's a good card, right? Damage, remove 1/1 counter, then give each player a rad counter. That's including you, which is dope. I'm okay with that. Imperious Mindbreaker. Seems like it'll do some okay stuff. Festing Rad Roach. Yeah. All right. So I like the idea of being able to get anything back in that regard. Cast a permanent. I think we keep Master just because it's from the deck. I think we can cut Kaga, even though I think that can be a really good card here. Emery probably does some decent work because of that mill. I think Necrotic is a good card. But I think it's going to it's a little bit out of what's going on. So we should cut that. I'll check for mutants and technically rogues, but homunculus, I think that's all right. Avatar, Mortivore, Lugifor, Shadowkin. It has to be that mill, but doing that mill and hitting a big creature is going to be nice. Jared, Mymioplasm. Maybe we cut that just because it's work to think about. Sometimes just trying to find the easy cards is going to do you better. Terravore. I mean, the other thing too is Terravore, if I cut that, it's gonna be big. It's gonna be a big guy. He's gonna be big guy. Horror, nightmare. Zombie, I like them. Danny Pink, yep. One or more non-land cards are milled. Vohar, Likeness, Overwhelmed Apprentice, Tato Farmer, Blossoming Tortoise. Yep. All right, let's mutants and or rogue. I don't think we're going to have any more rogues. We do have a mutant. Da 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 do 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 do. Da 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 do do. Da 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 da. Wizard. There's another mutant, but that doesn't have a triggered ability. Triggered ability of another creature. Yeah, so it's basically Murklurk. That's a mutant. That's not applicable. Not really. All right, we can cut Roaming Throne. It's only working with the commander. It's probably good. But all right. So I think we're gonna go CMC order. And then we will go into what they're doing in the deck order, and that'll probably be it. Might not get down to where I want to, but put in the time that I needed to. 6. Three, that'll be free. Hopefully that's 2. 3. All right. So one thing that I'm already kind of seeing is that I'm pretty high in my 4s and low in my 3s at this point. Doesn't mean that's going to be the case, but I'm going to keep an eye on that because the higher your curve is, the slower the game is going to go for you. And when you're doing a mill, you don't want to be slow. You want to be a little bit faster because people come at you, aggressively come at you. You know what I mean? If you know, you know, right? I've been hearing that a lot for some reason. I think it's stupid. Do do do. 2 Z's, 3 Z's. 7, 4, 3, and 3. All right. Nice at that 2 spot. I'm happy with that. But okay. So over the top, reach the multiverse and 2 X spells. I don't have anything against either of that. Contaminated drink potentially can kind of go. Then you get half X red counters rounded up. At this point, I think maybe we can cut that. It'll probably fill up my hand, and I'll probably be happy about it. But it's where we're at. Muldrotha at that top end as well. Yeah. Give plenty. I guess we have a planeswalker and all right. So in that 5 spot, definitely like Lords, Leers, Murlurk, Sir Conrad. And so I guess the question ends up being is do I like Perennial Behemoth? How many cards I need? I have 2 cards that I can do. 3? I'll want some lands from the graveyard type thing. And so we will get rid of this for now. And that'll just be like a switch back and forth. And so actually, you know what? We'll keep Perennial, but we will get rid of Conduit of Worlds. at this point. Um, like some of that graveyard play. Atomize. Non-land permanent. That's the biggest thing is that non-land permanent thing. I don't have a lot of ways to deal with like artifacts and enchantments. Enough ways to deal with creatures. I would say like people are gonna have their stuff die off trying to block my stuff, but those artifacts and enchantments, the pillow forts are gonna be rough. Struggle, yep. Bone horde, yeah. Blossoming tortoise. Oh, that was another one. Okay, so there's life from the loam, perennial, whatever, blossoming tortoise. Um, that should probably be fine. I like the blossoming tortoise because it's milling. Danny Pink makes sense. Jared, Shadowkin. I don't like the exile part. You may exile a creature card from among those cards milled this way. Um, and it has to be what you milled. We'll cut that for now. Mortivore, Lugi 4. The master's just going to get some creatures over on your side. And Blowfly Swarm. I dig it. Let's go that 3 spot. Seems pretty thin. That's all right. Invasion, Tyvar, Squirming Emergence. Let's reread that. Return to the battlefield. Target non-land permanent card in your graveyard with mana value less than or equal to the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. Yeah, I mean that's gonna be pretty good. But this is the problem: is it's not really what I'm doing. It can't play from the graveyard. It doesn't do any sort of mill. I guess we'll cut it. Far Wanderings. I do like that one. 3 mana feels like a lot. Tezzeret's. Mutational Advantage. Steady Progress. Um, let's cut Steady Progress. Let's compare it to the other ones that proliferate. Those are at like 2 mana rather than 3. They'll draw you a card, proliferate. This is it's just a little expensive. Tezzeret's Gambit is 3 mana and 2 life to draw 2 cards and proliferate, which is also pretty good. So, but I think we can probably cut Steady Progress at this point. And that's another draw card. So we're down to roughly 15 or 16 on that regard. Inspiring Call. Yeah. Intruder Alarm. Garrick's. But there's some other ones there. King Nafri's Betrayal. That is it's a little bit like again, it's like the Breach of the Multiverse. It's gonna mill a bunch, and this is so much better than Extract from Darkness because this is 3 mana instead of 5. This is 7. 4, 8, 12 versus 40. That's a huge difference, and which it should be. You gotta cast these creatures and you get to put these into play for free. Um, but it's not a bad deal early on, especially if it's like a mid game. It's not bad late game. If all I get to do is mill and maybe get some dorks, I'm happy with that as well. So, Psychic Corrosion. Yeah, I have some looters. That should be okay. Riddle Keeper. Rad Roach. Paired with another creature. Each of those creatures has, whenever this creature attacks, each opponent mills cards equal to its toughness. Um, yeah. Okay with this. Okay. 2 spot. Yes. 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 Um, yeah. Heroic Ripples. Cabal. Yeah. The 2 spot seems pretty well set. Like, that's gonna be hard to cut from for sure. I'm probably gonna have to figure out if I need to cut Gyre Sage or Incubation Druid. This gives me a little bit more flexing, easier to get more mana out of it. Whereas, like, this Evolve, it doesn't do anything until you get a creature out on it. Um, get rid of Gyre Sage. Gyre. Hermit Druid makes sense to me. Yeah. Avatar, whoa, deranged and vexing. Yeah, yeah, radical. It's all good. Songs of the Damned. That's gonna be a lot of work, and I don't know how many. I think we can cut this for now. If I find that I'm milling myself a lot, like if I'm actually being able to mill myself, but I think we're fine. Visions, Thought Scour, Exploration, Phyrexian Reclamation, Sensei's Top, Ring, Brood, Birds, a little bit of scry action, Brawn. Emery's getting some artifacts. There was some good artifacts here. Delighted. Jesus Phantasm. All right. Um all right. We'll put them into their sections again of what they're doing, and then we'll probably call it a night. Jace's, we got some ramp. We have big creatures and mill out there. We will consider that mill. There should be a graveyard spot. Ugh. Let's go like this. A little bit of graveyard stuff. Bloop, bloop. Scry, ramp, mill. Draw. Draw. What are you? You're like proliferate, but mill, so we'll call you mill. Ramp, removal, big creature. Draw discard. I'd consider that more mill than anything, but ramp, mill, protection, ramp, removal. Draw. We'll put that as kind of it's a little bit of playing from the yard. Some Rawl might go. Sad. He does something. What are you? All right, you graveyard? No, you're technically mill. We can do that. It's a protection. Big one. Play mill. Call you draw. Protection. No. Draw. Ramp. What are you? You're kind of like a boost. Mill. A little bit of draw, but that's there for the big guy. Mill. Reanimation. Big. 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 There for the draw. Ramp. Big. Removal. Recovery. Some da da da. That's some mill, but it's damage as well. That's draw. Yard. Yard. Removal and mill. All right. Let's see how many graveyard interactions stuff I need to be doing. I mean, I like Emery, Lear, Madrotha, Phyrexian Reclamation, and the Master and Rowell kind of make me Um, I mean, like, I like Raoul and the Master from intruder alarm perspectives. Um, let's cut dread return. Ugh. Ugh. One, two, three, four, five, six from that regard. Do we want Emery? Probably. Phyrexian Reclamation. Raoul. That's gonna be some hard cutting. One, two, three, four, five, six. I think we cut Raoul. I don't like that. I don't think I like that. But we'll go with it. We'll stick with it. Stick with our guns. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. How many do we need there? 10 or more cards in graveyard. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12. It's a lot. So that at least fills up graveyards. That can drain people. Mortivore. This is a hard part. I like all of these at this point. I am not the thing is that they're just big creatures, and you can only have so many in there that it's kind of flexible and stuff like that. So at this point, I want them. We'll do a count at the end as well. So breach the multiverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13, 14, 15, 16. Um, I think even though Hermit Druid fills up a yard like crazy, we'll get rid of it because it's not milling. Breach, Sir Conrad, Struggle, Bloatfly, King Narfis, Psychic Corrosion, Infesting Rad Roach. All right. Deals combat damage to a player. They get that many rad counters whenever an opponent mills a non-land card. If infesting rad roach is in the graveyard, you may return. This feels just like a really good card to discard to like looting, and just being able to get it back into the hand, back forth, and then once that kind of nonsense ends, it's a rad guy. Yeah, all of that makes a ton of sense to me. So there's big, there's little, there's plenty of stuff there. And so that is and that's any. Whenever another creature dies or a creature card is in the graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then pay 2, each player mills a card. That feels very reminiscent of Rad, and it's gonna do some work. Consuming Aberration. Yeah, all of that I'm happy about. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess if we're thinking about this, where is it? Struggle is stopping people from attacking you as well. So that should be over here. And having cards that purely mill technically aren't going to be as good or flexible as cards that do something and mill. So mill and do something. I like it. I like Tyvar just being able to give uh the haste. And like I said, 1,000 year elixir might be worth putting in here as well. Mutational advantage makes sense. Riddle Keeper. Yeah. Yep, 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 yep. I like all of that. All of it. I think what I'm gonna really have to focus on once we turn it off here is probably how much mill that doesn't attribute to draw removal and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, all of that is good in my mind. So the draw aspect, one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. One of them scrying, a bunch of looting. That's a little rough. Let's see if there's any other um card advantage bits in here just so that we can be cognizant of it. Um we'll draw a card off that cycle. Mm, casting creatures off of that. That's a draw. You get to draw off of that. Little cantrip. Howler, Terravore. Let's and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4 from the graveyard when it comes to like casting stuff. There's stuff to do with your mana. Um, three. So that's 18 cards that can help you draw. A lot of them are cantrips, a couple of engines. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15. Now we got rid of some ramp. We got rid of some draw. A little thin there too. Let's see if we can get anything when it comes to just any type of ramp added back in there. Um, eh, that's a stretch. Let's see here. Da-da-da-da-do. I think this one's always a bit tougher. Muldrotha can get me a land from there, but that's a stretch. It's not a stretch, but it's not really ramp either. Yeah, that's it. Okay, let's get a count in. Let's see where we're at. We're getting respectable. 2, 3, 25, 25, 25. All right, 75 total. That's where we're at. I'm gonna have to cut about 10 off camera. That's not a bad thing. Anybody that's watching or joined me, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hope you have a good night. Let me know what you end up with Mothman. He seems really cool. It's an owl. It's a moth. It's a moth, obviously. So it's a cryptic. All right. Have a good night. Bye.